Okay, so this is actually really exciting. We were driving up this mountain road, and honestly, these mountain roads are just some of the craziest roads I've ever seen. They just go straight up into the mountain to get to these overlooks. And often that's what we're looking for, is we're trying to get this vantage point. We're trying to get this vista. But one of the advantages of having a film crew driving around all over the Italian Alps is I get to look behind me. And that's not something that you often do as you're driving. It's something that you probably shouldn't do while you're driving. But as we're driving up and up and up this road, and the colors are starting to shift and the perspective is starting to get higher, and all these things are starting to work its way into that frame, I'm looking behind us and I see this gorgeous kind of S-curve, this like road that just kind of goes like this and just meanders and weaves right through up into this mountain. And I just yelled at everyone to stop, let's pull over. And we ran out of the car, and here we are. And you know when you have a picture, when you're just looking at something and then you're just like, ooh, 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 stop. That's what we did. Halted the car, ran into the road. Here we are. Let me show you what I'm talking about. And this is a scene that gets framed up the second I open up the camera app. It goes to my wide angle, my 1X view. And before we change anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and take this picture. Now, again, this is stunning. There's a reason why I stopped the car and ran into the road. But it doesn't capture here what I felt, what I saw. There's something about this, and really what kind of captured me was this winding, twisting road. As we're driving up, I see this light off in the distance, this low angle light off in the distance, and I see the colors on the trees starting to come alive. And then I see this mountain in the background, and then I see this gorgeous blue sky, which we haven't had many of in the last few days. So I see all this color and all this vibrancy and this twisting road winding through it all. But as I look at this scene, I'm getting that, but I'm getting more than that. And I don't need more than that, because any more than what I'm looking for is gonna start taking away from it. It's gonna start distracting the scene. So here, the obvious suggestion to do is simply go like this. Right away, while I'm shooting vertical, what I'm doing is cutting off all that boring information on the left, and I'm cutting off all the boring information on the right-hand side. And I'm focusing now entirely on that road, entirely on that mountain in the background, capturing that blue sky, and I'm capturing the foreground. So already this is starting to look better, but it's not there yet. Everything I just described, if you look at it, if you look at this frame, it's almost all entirely within this middle square. So what does that tell us? That means that we need to get closer. So before we do anything else, the easiest way to do it, the fastest way to do it, is to switch over to my 2X view. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna press that 2X and look at this scene now. It completely changes. I'm gonna take this picture. This is a completely different scene. Now it has all of the elements that I just described in a single frame, filling the entire frame, and that's so important. If something is not adding to that scene, don't include it. Photography is often described as the art form of removal. It's the art of removal. You want to ask yourself, literally ask yourself, what is important in the scene? What has it captivated me? And remove everything that's not that. But look at the left-hand side of the frame now. We have this tree that's not the ideal tree, and this will often happen. We have to pay careful attention to the edges of our frame. So this tree, it's not really dead, it just doesn't really have any color, and it's not helping. And if we look carefully, these branches are starting to kind of come into the frame, especially at the top of the image by the sky. It's not that big of a deal. We can kind of clone it out a little bit and we can retouch it. It's not that difficult to do, but if we can frame it up a little bit differently, why not try to eliminate it so we can avoid that altogether? So we have a couple options, right? I can't really move much to my right. I'm gonna lose that road. And obviously I can't move much to my left because that dead-ish tree is gonna start creeping more and more into the frame. So where I'm standing is actually pretty good right here. So what can I do? I have my 2X already cropped in as much as I can. I can either go up or I can go down. Now before I go up, it's always a lot easier to go down, path of least resistance. I'm gonna head down maybe just 5 or 10 feet, not that much. I just wanna get down low enough so I can remove this kind of deadish tree branches from the frame as much as I can. Let's take a look. So now what we did is we came down this hill just maybe 5-10 feet, not that much at all actually, just enough to get slightly below this deadish kind of tree, so it's not prominent in that top part of my frame. Now we're gonna start a little higher just to show you what I'm talking about. We already grabbed that image at the top of the road. Well, let me show you what happens. So if I start higher, you'll see that these branches are just entirely way too distracting at the top of the frame. Now if I just come down literally just a few inches, you'll notice as I do that, I'm starting to remove those branches from the top of the frame. That's it, 3-4 inches. That's everything in an image. It's so important to just pay attention to those little details and pay attention to where you're standing. Just move around a little bit, that will make such a big difference. So now that we remove that distraction at the top of the frame, I'm gonna take this image again. Now let's talk about something else that happened as I started to lower and lower the camera. An image is two-dimensional. We know that, for the time being at least, an image is two-dimensional. So what we're trying to do is capture this three-dimensional reality, this world that we live in that we kind of take for granted sometimes, and we're stuck with compressing it in a two-dimensional space, a two-dimensional scene. And sometimes it will do exactly that, it'll flatten an image entirely. So the reason why these kind of winding, curving roads work in an image like this is it creates this like a vanishing point. Picture a cube when you're in drawing class, and you picture just a square. That's a two-dimensional object. But the second you start drawing lines off to this kind of vanishing point, if you remember what that looked like, they all started going into this one perspective towards this horizon. It creates three-dimensionality. So we're almost kind of simulating that three-dimensionality by just allowing this road to curve directly into the frame, right? Into, that's the key word here. It's going into the frame. It's not going across the frame. It's going into the frame. That's what's creating this three-dimensionality. And so you can take that and apply that pretty much anywhere. If you're shooting a brick wall, if you're shooting a room, you don't want to shoot it straight on. If you come at an angle, you can have that wall, you can have whatever object that is, in this case it's this road, vanishing into the horizon, vanishing into the frame. That's what's allowing us to capture this three-dimensionality, and it creates a much more interesting image in the final result. So what we're starting to do is as we get lower and lower and lower, we're starting to lose this road just a little bit. It's compressing on itself. We almost have too much three-dimensionality into it. We don't see the entire road anymore. So we want to be careful not to go too high where we get those branches and not to go too low to where we start losing that road entirely. So right about this middle ground here is going to work pretty well for this scene. Now, I actually really like this image too. We've completely cleaned up this composition. In other words, we removed everything that's not the important part of this image. We removed all that dead space, and we filled the entire frame with the elements of that scene that really caught my eye. But how can we clean this up? Maybe. I don't know if this is gonna work, but it's worth trying just a little bit more. Just one more step that we can do. Now, you might be thinking, sure, how would we do that? We maybe zoom in a little bit more. This 2x at our moment is the longest telephoto lens that we have, but we can still go further than that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I just click on this 2x and I drag to the left, I can start zooming in. Now this is a digital zoom, but that's fine. For the composition, you're gonna start losing a little bit of image quality, but let me show you what this composition is gonna do now. Roughly to about 3.3 would probably work. And again, I want to be careful about the framing of this. I don't want to cut that road off. Maybe this shot here. Maybe we'll get down just a little bit lower and take this image too. Now look at this. We simplify the composition more simply by zooming in. I don't know if I'm going to like the one with the sky. So by simplifying it even more, what I did is isolate just that road in this forest environment. You'll notice I completely cut off the tops of the mountains. I still have that mountain kind of filling that background as a frame, which still works. But now if I asked anyone within a second, what's the focal point of this image? They're gonna tell you it's this road running through this forest. So we simplified it as much as possible by using this digital zoom to get in just a little bit tighter. So we have this composition in place, but as I mentioned earlier, as we get higher and higher and higher, we're starting to see more and more of this road. So there's only so high I can get, right? I'm vertically challenged, 5'7" on a good day, but what I can do, since boulders tend to be my thing, I can't find boulders here, but I can run up this road and I can scramble up the other side of this road to get a higher vantage point. So that's what we're gonna do next. I think when I get higher up there, I'm gonna see if I can frame this tree out a little bit. I might have some variability with where I can stand, but most importantly, what I'm gonna try and do is stretch this road out a little bit. In other words, by looking down on the road, I can see more of it snaking through this forest. Let's go ahead, let's take a look and see what we get.